Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. Our generation is one defined by entrepreneurship, realizing things we want that don't exist and making them a reality. Or we're just simply trying to build our own lane. In the best cases, there are those among us who build new things not just because there's a gap in the market or they don't want to work for a boss anymore, but because they truly believe what they're doing makes the world better. It doesn't take much of a mental leap for me how much entrepreneurship and parenting have in common. The work at all hours, doing any job that needs doing to achieve the bigger picture. The intrinsic motivation required to get up every day and give what you can. The heavy years of upfront investment, potentially while feeling like the return is limited. Yet you keep going because you're trying to build something. This week's guest is the consummate entrepreneur. She makes because she sees a need, not just a gap. She didn't just build a lane for herself, she built a whole complex highway system connecting people together to build community. And she does it all while keeping a keen eye on her direction of travel as a parent. Betsy Riley is the co-founder of Swehl. Swehl is a company not just providing products to support people on their breastfeeding journey, but also resources, education, and, of course, community. Betsy's story is my favorite kind. Unexpected and joyful and poignant and filled with lessons that translate far beyond her own world. Enjoy. Welcome to the closet. I'm excited because I feel like in some ways I was like charting your path and I want to figure out where the holes are, but
there's definitely holes.
We both ended up in LA. We both went to NYU.
Yes. Are we on the record right now?
Sorry. This is on the record. This isn't like a gotcha sort of place.
I hope not. I'm in the closet.
Yeah, you're in my closet. This is
eating zucchini bread.
You're eating zucchini bread. This is this is a place where people get to tell their story. Like there have definitely been people on the pod where I'm like, I'm pretty sure you were mad at your husband about that. But if you don't want to say you were, that's fine. You know what I mean?
I ran into a friend who, a guy who just had a baby, and I was like, "How are you?" He's like, "Wife hates me." I'm like, "Yes, the rage." I'm sorry.
Yeah, totally. And you know what? Good for that guy for just being like, "My wife hates me," because I actually think a lot of guys don't say it out loud, or they're like,
"It was a second." So he's like, "I've been through this process. I know she hates me, and we'll get through it."
I was gonna say that's like really self-aware.
Yeah,
for a dad especially. Okay, so what we're gonna do?
Yes.
We're going to start in Texas because that's where you grew up. Born in Texas?
Born in Iowa City, which is maybe for a different pod, but grew up from 2 months on in Texas, 18 years.
Iowa City. I literally could not tell you a single fact about Iowa City.
Neither could I, except I was born there.
Okay.
And there's a hospital there.
And there's a hospital there. So this podcast apparently like loves a Texan Jew.
Sure.
Like that's something that we're really big on apparently. Yeah. So we're going to start in Texas and we're going to end up in LA today.
Okay.
And we're going to make some stops along the way.
I'm ready.
Okay. So you grew up in Texas, in Houston.
I did.
Like, are we talking suburbs or cosmopolitan Houston? I don't really know what Houston looks like.
I was about to say cosmopolitan Houston. I grew up in the middle of Houston. I grew up near the Galleria.
Okay. Do people live in houses in the middle of Houston?
Yes, they live in houses. But like to fast forward too much, my parents now live on a farm. So I very much grew up with a city experience. I mean, I had a house that, you know, in a neighborhood that almost felt like a suburb, but it was inside Houston. And then my dad kind of had this big dream as he continued his work that he would have a farm and it would have dogs and horses and goats and all these things, and that's his reality now. So now when I go home, I go to a farm.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And also it feels like your dad's living like the millennial dream because I feel like the internet right now is really serving homesteader.
Yes.
It's like
trad wife.
Right. Yeah, it's like we're trad wife, but even the progressives like are like, you know, you start by growing a zucchini in the backyard and you fast forward 6 months and you're trying to figure out how to milk a cow in like rural Montana somewhere.
Yeah.
So good for you. Good for them.
Yes. I thought his midlife crisis would be like, a red Porsche or a this. And he was like, no, actually, going the other direction.
Wow. Okay. So you grew up cosmopolitan Houston, whatever that looks like. And do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 older brothers.
Older brothers.
Yes, I'm the baby.
Interesting. Yeah. So you grew up in Houston. We have 2 older brothers. And both of your parents were working or not working?
My dad is a general vascular surgeon. He actually just retired last week. We threw him a big party.
Wow.
Has like different kind of specialties. And we had this understanding in my family that my dad's primary kind of like role in life was doctor. Even, before father, sometimes he worked a ton. He was on call at all hours.
Is that a vein doctor? What is that?
It's mostly transplants, so like pancreatic
so you're really on call.
Yes. Kind of famous for this surgery called a Whipple that usually takes many, many, many hours. He did it in like half the time. So my dad was this really incredible surgeon, and he and my mom had a deal. My mom was dealing with 3 kids at home, so much work. Like they both had their plates so full, but it worked for them.
They like really knew what the division of labor 100%. Was. Everyone was clear. And do you feel like because they had that understanding and you all knew that understanding, your mom felt like a sense of pride in her work in the home?
Well, my mom was meant to be a mom. Like,
right.
This is what she wanted to do. So the pride would have been there whether my dad was involved in it or otherwise.
Yeah.
But she was just such an excellent mother
3
to
kids.
3 and 2 older boys who, like, that is not easy. But yeah, I think it was because everyone knew their role and the whole family had
everybody was bought in.
Everyone was bought in.
Wow. So surgeons kind of, I feel like stereotypically have a personality type, right? Like, did you ever watch Scrubs?
You know what? My husband loves Scrubs, but I've actually never watched it. But someone told me this joke.
Betsy.
I know. Someone told me the joke the other day. What's the difference between God and a surgeon? God knows he's not a surgeon, and that is like, I feel like that's the joke.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at. So in terms of your dad's personality type, was he like that, or was he different to that sort of stereotype?
My dad's a very serious man.
Yeah.
And I remember even in my early days of working, which I know we'll probably get to, I would come home and say, God, it was a bad day. And he'd say, was everyone alive?
Oh,
Did everyone
for fuck's sake,
right.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well, I can't say anything now. But really, like, that kind of like binary look of, is it a good day or a bad day, and how you handle your emotions through work. And my dad just, kind of like praised excellence, but more so as like if you were talking about like a surgeon type, morals and values are so important to the community, of course. Like, they take an oath. It's very, very serious. So I feel like that kind of defines my dad if I think about him and kind of peel back.
Yeah.
Having excellence in your work and having a moral compass that is guiding your day-to-day work.
And often, I mean, my dad's a doctor as well, not a surgeon, but like sometimes can often be a little bit binary in their understanding of right and wrong. Like, totally. Because in their professional life, it is very much like there is a right answer and a wrong answer to how to do something. And I found sometimes that translates outside, where it's like you either did this thing the right way or you did it the wrong way, or, whatever. And an A- is not an A, or whatever it is. And also on the like doctory point, did you ever, when you were sick as kids?
Oh my God, yes.
Walk me through what being sick was like in your house.
Dad, my elbow hurts. Stop moving it. Right. No medicine. My husband to this day is like, why won't you just take an Advil? I'm like, because I don't need that. Like, I'm a full-on classic stereotypical doctor's kid. What about you?
Same. Yes. Absolutely the same. To the point, like, much to my husband's chagrin, who grew up in a very different environment. And then, like, were there ever situations where your mom was like, husband, like, I think that Betsy's sick. Like, I think she needs to go see the doctor. And he's like, no, she's good. I'm a doctor. I can tell you she's fine. Or if your mom wanted to take you to the doctor, was it like, okay, like, go?
Yeah, my mom would, if my mom wanted to take me to the doctor, Dad would say yes.
Yeah.
But I'm laughing because even, I can't believe I'm sharing the story, but we were just all in Texas together. And
on the farm?
On the farm. And we made like a big batch of smoothies, and one of my little nephews came and like took a sip, and I was like, there was almond milk in there, and he is allergic to almonds. So of course everyone is just
DEFCON 5.
Literally, like, silence drops over the house, and I have one relative like, oh my God, we need to like get the EpiPen immediately with that. My dad's like, he look at him, everyone, he's fine.
Right.
Not even a welt. I mean, he's like everybody. So I think having that kind of presence of like that grounding person who's just like, it's all okay. We're all going to be fine is very good.
And in adulthood, now that you are a parent, how often are you texting dad to ask medical questions?
Oh, like more than I should. That I felt like I
don't know if there is a limit actually on that.
That's true. Now that my youngest is over 2, I feel like things are I know what I'm getting, but those first 2 years, like, oof.
Nonstop.
No.
I always joke that it's like, you know, when we moved here from New York, it's like, okay, I've got this new friend network. Oh, there's a doctor friend in the friend group, and she does like pediatric stuff. Cha-ching. Like, cha-ching, I have someone who I can like bring my kid over to the house and just do a quick looky-loo in the ear if we've got an ear infection. Like, that's the holy grail.
Luxury.
That's luxury.
Like, I'm not even, that is like the absolute peak. Be good to that friend.
Yeah.
You bake for
Shout
that
out.
friend.
You know who you are. She listens every week.
Shout out. Here's my number.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
be friends.
I know. Yeah. And also there is I think it's a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group or something of pediatric specialists who are moms in Los Angeles.
Amazing.
Who are all in touch with each other. So if one of them doesn't know the answer, they like text the group.
Oh my gosh.
Magical.
See, doctors are amazing.
They can be. Okay, so everybody's got these clear roles and responsibilities.
Yes.
Growing up, were you or either of your siblings ever like, I want to follow in dad's footsteps? Or was this just like, this is so hardcore, I don't want to do this?
Such a hard pass. Such a hard pass for every single one of us. Would never be able to dedicate that much time, effort, energy, all of it. And also my brothers are, my 2 brothers are very, very different people. My oldest is a really interesting thinker. He was an internet kid before that was a thing. He was up all night on his computer, and he is a tech founder at this point. His brain works in a very different way. He could absolutely never be a doctor. His mind is moving in a different vibration.
It kind of naturally has to move non-linearly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then my other brother is just like a strong finance guy. No. And then God, no.
But you're all like doing pretty competitive hard things, which is interesting.
Yes. Everyone is kind of on their own journey, own path, doing things that are challenging and exciting, but having that kind of up close and personal view of what it is like to not only be a doctor, but of course be a surgeon was just, easy to say. That is really for someone who has a calling.
Yes.
Is the truth.
Yeah. No, one of my childhood best friends who is a doctor now, her dad is a neurosurgeon, and in middle school, she would like scrub in and watch him like pop out tumors and shit. And it's like, you know what?
Yes.
Good. You go get it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I have one friend who interned for my dad. He wanted to be a doctor. The very first day my dad brought him in, and he came to in the emergency room with IVs. And they were like, you didn't even make it past the first cut. And it was like, okay, not everyone, you might think you want to be a doctor until you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Although now I feel like being a mom, the amount of like gross, gnarly shit that you just are confronted with all the time as having kids, I'm like, maybe now I could be a doctor. You know, in the sense of like dealing with people's nasty bodies and like cuts and wounds and things, but not then.
I know I've seen too much.
Yeah.
I've seen too much. I knew there are like a couple of moments, I don't know if you feel this way in early parenthood, where you're like, oh, damn, I'm a mom now or something like that. It was in COVID, and we were like at a family dinner, and one of the kids there busted open their lip, and when I tell you like the blood gushing out, like we had to go to the hospital. Ugh. But everyone was just staring, and I'm like grabbing her nose, blood all over me, like literally, and what? Like it did not even faze.
Yeah, your
me.
Instincts all of a sudden really change.
That is true.
And I say to people a lot, especially new parents and especially moms, because, you know, we're all taught to believe that we have like mother's intuition, and I don't believe in that. I think it's a learned skill, and intuition is just a collection of experience over time, and you're drawing upon it when something happens. So in that situation, you're like, kid is hurt. I broadly sort of know what I'm supposed to do here. Nothing bad's going to happen to me if I get involved. So like, I'm just going to jump in and do it. And so I try and remind people, because I remember that feeling early on with my first of being like, I don't have an intuition with what I'm supposed to do. Like, he's crying, but I don't know why he's crying. Like, I've done all of the things on the checklist and he's still upset. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong with me that I don't know what's wrong with him? And it's like, oh, well, you just need practice. That's really what it is.
Absolutely.
You know?
I remember bringing my oldest home and the very first night home, just walking our hallway all night.
You know what one of my husband's biggest complaints is? He hates how I organize or don't organize the kid shit, especially the diaper bag. He claims that if he knew where to easily find stuff, he'd use it more and, by proxy, take the kids out more on his own. Well, game on, sir. Get your own bag. The Gojo Backpack by Silverback Supply Company is the move. Designed by a dad who was also sick of his wife's diaper bag shenanigans, it's the perfect bag for living life with a baby. It's got a padded sleeve for your laptop or tablet, bungees to secure that blankie or stuffy, a built-in changing pad, and more. I know the tradition is that you buy a cutesy diaper bag for new moms at the baby shower. But what if we flipped the script, started buying gear for the dads, set the tone that they're equals in this thing right from the get-go? If you've got a dad to young kids, a dad that's expecting, or really any parent that's into minimalist, modern design and needs to lug some kid shit around, hit them with something different. Go to silverbacksupplyco.com and use discount code MUTHA, MUTHA, for 20% off and free shipping and handling. I'll put a link in the show notes.
She cried all night.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like, this is so hard. And then the next day, again, it was COVID. But I was lucky that a very skilled doula, postpartum doula, came over for 4 hours. That was all. I was like, please. And she had seen so many babies. She just knew. She had the touch. And I was like,
right.
oh. And I think there was some of that feeling of like, this woman has the touch or maybe I don't. It's like, no, she's seen hundreds.
She's just a professional.
Of babies. And I get to learn from her for these 4 hours.
Exactly.
And I'm going to learn everything I can. And the next night, the babies, slept some.
Yeah.
So, some.
Yeah.
Some listeners, don't worry.
Yeah. We're not like taunting a full night asleep for a two-day-old or something.
I don't know the last time I had a full night's sleep. Certainly not last night. Do I sound tired? I hope not.
No, I think you look great. I think you sound great.
Wow.
And also, there's like this misconception that after you get past the baby phase that like sleep gets better. It's like, no, then you get night terrors or potty training or like whatever the fuck is going on.
Yes.
It's just like surrender.
The nightmares. Oh my God, they're so heartbreaking.
I know. My dude right now, he woke up this morning. He's like, Mommy, I had a bunch of dreams last night. I'm like, oh, were they like good dreams or bad dreams? He's like, I'm not going to tell you about it.
You're like, ooh, let's
fine.
dig in.
Okay, fine. But he's just like, no, I'm going to ice you out on this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave you hanging and then ice you out.
I like that they have secrets. I like that they have internal lives and worlds.
A rich internal life.
What happened at school today? It was awesome, but like I'm gonna keep it to myself. I'm like, okay then.
Yeah, and then you like see a picture and they have a serpent wrapped around their
exactly.
neck.
And you're like, wait. Yeah, desperately scrolling through the
somebody
the
give me something,
please.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back in Texas. We're back in Texas. Nobody wants to be a doctor. Nobody wants to follow the footsteps. What happens in your house when you're younger when somebody gets in trouble when you were kids? What happened?
Definitely like a strong talking to. I'm gonna blow my brother and my mom up. Usually like we didn't get in trouble for maybe typical things, but my mom was very serious about safety. If you were not being safe, like that, exactly
ahead of her time,
literally. So safety was
prioritizing.
Huge. And one time, my brother and his friend were lighting leaves on fire in the backyard, little freaking pyros, right?
Sure,
just
we all went there. I did that. Yep, great.
Right. My mom caught them and dragged them both to the fire station. And she got firefighters to talk to them about fire safety. So like so this is my mom. But like that, it was like education based, which is really funny to think. Like I don't really remember having timeouts or things like that.
Yeah. But that's the whole thing, right? Like, and I say ahead of her time in the sense that the whole idea behind discipline is it's supposed to be educational. It's not supposed to just like make kids feel shitty.
Right.
It's like, oh, like what can they actually learn from this experience? And if they can't learn something from the experience, is it really worth the time, the effort to make them feel shitty? Right? But like that's kind of new.
Yes, definitely.
So good for her.
Yeah.
And
ultimate
then
gentle parenter.
And then was there any, because your dad was busy, understandably so much of the time, was he involved in any of that sort of stuff, or was it just like she's giving him the recap at night?
If dad is involved, something like truly fucked up happened and we are in big trouble that he has come into the conversation.
Yeah.
Like that was reserved for like the bad.
And he like probably didn't even have to say that much because just his presence.
Terrifying.
Right.
Just him. Terrifying. It was
right.
like, okay, like yes, terrifying.
There was a big boo-boo made here.
Yes.
And so watching your mom be full-time mom.
Yes.
Was that aspirational for you?
Absolutely. I always wanted to be a mom. I think coming here to Los Angeles.
Stay-at-home mom?
I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, which I am not now, and I don't think that that's like the right.
Nor have you ever been, really.
I did. I was
for how long?
Rosie for almost a year.
Okay, but like within standard deviation of spending time with your kid.
No, I mean, only been a mom for 4 years, and have been doing Swehl for most of it. But no, but yes, very inspired by my mom. Had no idea the amount of work and challenge it would be to be a mother that is a full-time parent without outside support. And then I'll be vulnerable for a second, which is my mom is, very deep into an illness, and she's been sick for a very long time, and we don't have the ability to talk anymore.
Oh, Betsy.
I know.
Wait, why don't I have tissues in here?
Because I don't need them. Just
I might though. But I might though.
No, I do need them.
That's really hard.
It is, but I want to tell her all the things. 7 years, and I want to tell her all the things like, oh my God, this. Can you believe I did this? Or like, my God, I apologize. Or how did you do this?
Yeah.
Because I have more admiration. I do need tissues.
You see? Right.
Than ever.
Yeah.
And I don't think as a parent I'm suited for that. And I like give her the biggest, respect that she's incredible.
And is this, you don't have to say, but is it some sort of dementia?
Yeah, my mom has early onset Alzheimer's.
Okay. My stepdad does. He has Lewy bodies dementia, which is similar.
I know it well.
And it is tough.
Yes, it is.
And especially in a situation with a mom where it's like this time in your life, you want her to be able to see you momming and like you doing all of these things.
You want to ask the questions.
Yeah.
How did you do this?
Yeah.
How can I do this? Or you just want to, absolve yourself from all these things that you did as a kid or that you didn't understand.
And do you feel like you had an opportunity at all to, or have you mourned? Because that is a huge loss. Like, have you kind of gone through any sort of grieving process?
Constant grief.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Absolutely. Especially becoming a parent. With every new milestone, there's a new thing that I'm thinking, God, I wish she was here for.
Yeah.
But it also inspires me to be a better mother, to do more with my kids, make the most of my time. I feel like I've had quite a few like aha moments of this is not the dress rehearsal. We have one life and we get to do these things.
Yeah.
So this is definitely not my first one of those.
Yeah.
But I'm like more and more grateful, and as a parent, more dedicated to making the most of every little milestone.
Yeah. In some ways, it's interesting because your dad, when you were younger, is bringing you this perspective. You're like, I had a shitty day. And you're like, well, is everyone, and he's saying, is everyone alive?
Right.
And as a kid, you're like, whatever, Dad, like my feelings are my feelings.
Totally.
And then you have this experience with your mom where it is this very visceral thing where now you're probably asking yourself like, oh, today's really annoying, but I get to be here. I get to be present with my kids. You kind of have your own self-check.
Absolutely. I've had that self-check for the past 10 years from a health issue.
Oh, interesting.
Which was also, of my own.
Yeah.
So I feel, but I don't know. It's like one of those things that, I'm grateful for these things because I feel it gives you needed perspective that, potentially would have taken me a lot longer in life.
Mortality is an extremely valuable tool.
That'll do it.
Well, it's just, like...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You can't enjoy something infinitely.
No.
So knowing that things are finite.
And your health is everything.
Health is everything.
All of the above.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so you now are in high school, let's say. We'll jump to high school. In high school, what were the sorts of things that were interesting to you, exciting to you, or were you just one of those people who were like, school sucks, but I want to do stuff outside of school?
No, I've always been just kind of like insufferable in terms of being involved. Like I am,
High five!
Yeah, girl. I'm just a natural cheerleader. Like wanted to be involved in everything. Was a huge theater kid. Loved so much so that I went to band camp for 2 months every summer.
This one time at band camp?
This one time at band camp. I went to Interlochen Arts Camp, which is like shout out.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And loved it. I was involved in student government. I, was very involved in like every extracurricular, and I liked school. Like, especially as, I think freshman year I actually got the worst grades and then became more interested in classes as they got more interesting, right? You can do creative writing senior year, whatever it is, So yeah, really love school.
So that point is interesting just because it truly shows the self-motivation of like you weren't just showing up to get an A. You were showing up to the things that were interesting to you and starting to pursue what was interesting. Like for me, I was like, I want all A's.
Oh my God, I've never.
I want a clean bill of health. I need A's across the board. You gave me an A-. Like, let's talk it out. How do I get the extra credit to get to an A? Like, didn't matter what the subject was. For you, it was like, I'm going to excel at the things that I'm interested in.
Yes, I would.
Much healthier.
Well, I mean, I think that's really great. Like even in college, I'm laughing because I graduated like with honors, but I definitely took like voice lessons. I'm like, thank you, voice lessons, for raising my GPA. Like
I took pottery or ceramics at NYU also.
Exactly.
If it's available to you, why not?
That's right.
Okay, so as you're sort of identifying this creative thing that's inside of you. There's something there. You're going to band camp, you're doing creative writing in high school. What was there like a specific outlet that you knew I wanted to do this type of art?
I was always involved I really loved the culture of theatrics or whatever, but also just like pop culture. I love pop culture. And was just knew I wanted to have some sort of foot through the door in music. I applied to college, some schools to go for theater and some schools for comms. Definitely grateful I did not get in for the theatrical schools because ultimately I'm really great at like community theater or something like that. That would have been a disaster had I actually tried to pursue that as my career. Like I don't even it's funny to even think about because it's so far off, but at that time I was like, well, maybe I could make it work. And it's like, no, you cannot. Especially your first year at NYU when you're like, oh, whoa, these people are so talented.
Lady Gaga was in my class at NYU.
Okay,
like
see,
she was my
humbling.
year. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She was in the talent show freshman year, and it was just like, there's no point in trying to be a person.
Right. But even she had such a hard little go at NYU.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, well, I wasn't in her grade. What do I know? But yeah, I don't know if it was about like creative endeavors. I just knew I liked to
express,
dive in. I'm someone who just likes to dive in. I get curious. I like to kind of see it through. I'm someone who likes to do, and so I knew that.
And so then you finish NYU and you stay in New York or you come straight to LA?
Went to NYU, ended up doing the communication media, whatever the new name of the school is. Love Steinhardt very, very much. I'm still involved.
You know what? You give Steinhardt vibes.
Oh my God, what does that even mean?
Well, I'm a CAS person. CAS, I guess. I don't know what they
I get those
call
vibes.
It. Right. It's like
everyone knows you like belong. It's like
I don't know how to explain it. It's like if we're talking maybe like a Harry Potter house.
Right.
If we're talking Harry Potter house, it's like, I feel like you're giving like a Ravenclaw.
That's hilarious. I'm trying not to be offended.
Why?
I don't know. Is Ravenclaw?
No, Hufflepuff. You'd be like, what the fuck, bitch?
Okay. Yeah,
yeah. But like Ravenclaw is like erudite. I think Steinhardt I associate with people. It is more, I feel like, vocationally focused.
Absolutely.
Compared to Cass.
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit more directional in a way.
I
don't know.
That.
You're giving Ravenclaw.
When we were there, it was like the nursing school and the violin school and
education.
And it was just truly like, okay, you have no home, come to Steinhardt. But now they've really kind of narrowed it down and become more focused.
Yeah. Okay, so you do your Steinhardt.
Yes.
You are your Ravenclaw self. And then you finish, and what happens?
I finish early. I travel for a little bit.
Tracks.
I graduate at the height of the recession.
Same.
And I interview everywhere and don't get a job. And it's like coming up on graduation. So I've now spent like I graduated the semester early and was like, ooh, I like give myself a semester to kind of figure life out, graduate with my class and the walk, and then start a job. Like I need to start a job. So I had a friend who was working at William Morris in LA in the music department. They're like, hey, here's what you have to do. You have to go cover concerts every night with a bunch of 22-year-old assistants. You get to go to the shows, come back, free tickets. You got to like, you know, help manage tours. And I was like, oh my God.
That's a job?
Sign me up. I do this anyway. I go to shows every night anyway. And I did go to shows almost every night, especially senior year in New York. So I was already kind of doing that. So I was like, yes. And I came out to LA, met with kind of a very infamous character at WMA, William Morris Agency. That's how old I am. Yeah. And did this really ridiculous interview. If you say you have, you know, I can speak Spanish on your resume, someone will walk in and be like, hola, ¿cómo estás? And you have to, and you're like, oh my God, you like it was such a fun kind of ridiculous start to LA. But I got the job, and then the week after graduation, moved out to LA.
And then you had this chapter of living in LA, your early 20s.
Yes.
You worked a bunch of different jobs in entertainment over a chunk of time.
Correct.
And in that period, are you like living with roommates, I don't know what it's like to be a young person in their 20s in LA. Like, what does that look like? Are you like going to Runyon with your pals?
Yes. It's like any sort of kind of stereotypical experience. Absolutely. Did bar method with my friends, got brunch at like did the West Hollywood girl thing. But yeah, I was friends with a lot of other assistants. Like the entertainment world was really warm home and host as I was getting started in a brand new city. And I love LA a lot. I feel like when you leave New York, you can go to a bar and you can talk to the person next to you and they can become your best friend. And LA is not that. I feel like LA, you have to be introduced. There are already like standard groups of people. But I never really subscribed to that. And was like,
me neither.
I was like, no, I'm going to like
do this the New York way.
Yeah. We're just going to meet everybody. And I'm from Texas. So I like boundaries are very different. That was a big learning lesson of going to NYU.
Say more.
It was
like, tell me.
So like the very first day of NYU, I got an elevator. It was like all girls from my floor. And I was like, okay, everybody, like I'll break the ice. I'm Betsy. It's so good to meet everybody. Zoop. No one responded. It was the most awkward elevator ride of all time. And I was like, okay, I am not in Texas anymore. Or just like, again, like what I thought was maybe cold or whatever, I understand now looking back is boundaries and personal space and ideas of what is neighborly or friendly versus too much or in your zone, that it's just a cultural difference.
So funny.
And it was important to learn both sides.
I'm glad that you learned that lesson.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if I ever did.
Yeah, no, don't do it.
Because I am a Florida girl.
Yeah.
Not the same as like Texan, but it's still not Miami, like real Florida.
Yeah.
Tampa.
Florida and New York are like they're cousins.
They're sort of related, but like I wouldn't say like boundaries are my strong suit. I literally have a podcast where I ask people I don't really know pretty personal questions pretty fast.
Sure.
But I never learned the boundary lesson. Or at least like with my friends and people I want to be my friends. With other people, I'm getting better. Okay, so you make it out to LA.
Yeah.
You're living this like wonderful LA life. And do you feel a calling in the work that you're doing? Because I noticed like you worked for a lot of shows like The Voice.
Yes.
And like did a lot of this sort of seemingly nice intersection for you of music and communications and yada yada.
Yes. Okay.
Get real.
Here's the real, which is when you are working in entertainment in Los Angeles, you start in as assistant. And I had trouble getting past that step. This is the real.
Yeah.
Right? And I was such a great assistant. I was excellent.
You were almost too good for people to want to let go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I would find these bosses who were maybe at the very tippy top of what they were doing. And I would be like, oh, I'm working for like the top executive here. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I'm in all these meetings. But I was never specializing a skill. I was never working for the marketing department. I was never, trying to really hone in so I could get to that next step. So when I left these roles after many, many years is I had a really awesome Rolodex. I had seen and heard a lot of really great things, and I felt I knew nothing. Yeah. Or I was just like this mass generalist, which by the way, I still am.
So am I.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But that's like, if I could give advice to someone who is kind of starting in that journey, it's like, be a bad assistant, actually. Do what you need to do and be good, but like, don't be so good that they're going to keep you there.
Yeah.
You need to focus on your next step. Like, that is the whole, the point is not to be a good assistant. The point is to learn what you need to know to get to whichever path you decide is yours.
So, I also think people with the generalist background that both of us have superpowers that you realize in more executive functions and roles like the one you have now, but the coming up is a lot harder.
Absolutely.
We had somebody else on the pod who is the president of Dear Media,
Yes.
Paige Port.
Yep, I know
And Paige has collected all of these amazing experiences, and now they all make perfect sense in her current job. But coming up, you don't necessarily realize that you're getting to that place, but you're collecting all of the tools that you need. And then you just kind of have to have the cojones to be like, okay, now I'm taking the spotlight.
I had a different experience, which was like, you know what, actually, I'm going to just start my own thing.
Yeah.
That's going to be the way to do it.
Yeah, because if somebody is not going to like understand how to use me, then I have to use myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm a tool, and if you're not gonna, and I'm like a weapon,
Yeah.
like that can really do some stuff. But if other people don't know how to leverage it, then I'm gonna have to leverage it for my own thing.
I remember I just also was aimless. I didn't know. I had all these things that I wanted to give. I had all these things that I felt that I was good at, but I had no idea how to channel them.
Yes.
And I remember working at The Voice. I had worked for Simon Cowell's production company, and my boss had moved over to The Voice, and I followed him, loved working for him, loved working for The Voice. But the best part of the whole Voice experience was the show, like the live show. I would get to run kind of like the VIP experience with all our different partners. We had a bunch of Fortune 500 companies, but none of the executives would actually want to come. So they'd be like, here are tickets for these, family friends or whatever. So you'd have people who weren't really connected to the show just come and be a part of this experience. And I would get to take their photo in the chair and introduce them to the coaches or whatever. And you see the joy that you're bringing everybody. And I was like, this just feels so good. I want to feel like this all the time. So that was kind of like my early start of saying, like, there's something in community or like experience that is really exciting to me, and what does that look like?
And so then at what point, how old were you when you decided to really hone in on that piece and go out on your own and do your own thing? Because that's what happens next, right? You have like 8 years working in entertainment and all of these really interesting places, and then at some point you decide.
So I alluded to it earlier, but when I was 27, I had thyroid cancer. And it was like,
fuck,
right?
You did not allude to that. That's a, okay.
So, you know what? Like, looking back, it wasn't necessarily, it was more of a
27.
27. Young, so young. And it just like happened in like a really great happenstance. But guys, like, trust your doctors. If your doctor even thinks anything is wrong or there's like any sort of like tiny, just trust them and get it checked.
Well, so let's dig into that. So what was off or different?
Nothing was off. I needed a new gynecologist.
As we all do.
As we do. Someone sent me like an older friend who had grown up in LA, lived here and had kids, was like, you need to go to my gyno. He's like the guy in town.
The guy.
But like the guy is 90. Right? The guy, a strong pass at this point of my life, but back then, yes. And also, like, God bless this man, because I really needed him. So I go, and he gives me a checkup, and he feels my throat, and he said, you have a lump on your thyroid. You need to go get it checked. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. I go, I get it checked. It is cancer. And the doctor says, there is no way that doctor felt this. This is tiny. There's no scientific way that he would have felt it. But I'm like, sir, I'm sitting here.
I'm fucking here, man. And he sent me here.
Exactly. So this man was just like magic. He had magical hands, magical fingers, just like.
I've never had in all of the years of going to get OB-GYN checks, I have never once had somebody touch my throat.
Are you sure?
I don't think so.
Because I only notice because every time I go now.
Okay, I'm gonna notice. I need to go soon. I'm gonna notice.
And ladies, if not, then have them check your thyroid or your throat, or just trust your gut.
Didn't even honestly know where my thyroid was. I thought it was like over here.
It's here. It's
okay.
right. You can see.
Had no idea.
Yeah, it's right in the front of your throat. Looks like a little butterfly. But yes, and I had met my husband 3 weeks before this died. So it was just like one of those really wild moments in life, which was like, one, okay, I have this partner and he's not leaving and I have cancer and we've been together for 3 weeks. Like, cool. I'm going to marry you. Like, that I was just all in on him from that experience. But equally, I thought, am I really going back after this to do season 8 of The Voice? Like, what do I want this all to really look like? And I took a break, and I just kind of stepped back, and I was very lucky to be able to do that. Took a little career break to figure it out. Ultimately went back to another entertainment job, but still, like, I can't, like, that poor choices. But in the backdrop, started my first company, which was Doyen, a women's social club where we would get together young executives who kind of maybe felt like they didn't have a mentor, but we kind of shifted that narrative of, like, you don't need this one person who's going to tell you everything. We all have to help each other. There is value in a younger person teaching an older person things. Like, it is a two-way street. I wanted to stop that kind of assumption that a mentor is a one-way relationship,
yes,
and you're just like dropping down. No, it's like, you know, we both rise up by being in each other's lives. So I wanted to start like this intergenerational community.
So totally ahead of your time when you think about The Wing, when you think about Chief.
We launched the same week as The Wing, actually.
So it's just like you clearly were tapping into something that both I'm sure you wished you had and wanted for yourself, but also you're looking around and you're friends with all these assistants and people who are trying to make their way, and you're realizing like we need more community here.
Definitely. And at that point, I had just, you know, I think I was 29, 30 when I started Doyen. Like, by the time I was really kind of kicking off, 29. And so people were at the start of their executive career. So it was also like these women who really were making like cool moves, being able to sit in the room. So Doyen was really fun because we had a Doyen, which means a woman at the top of her field, and they would be our speaker, but they would host us. We would go to their home. So you'd be in the home of like Gloria Steinem and getting to hear tales and stories, and it was just like an open access, very intimate, really wonderful community, and I loved it so much.
Wow. I want to ask more questions about that, but before we do, there's two things where I want to go back to.
Okay.
One, in terms of your thyroid cancer,
yes,
they physically remove
my entire thyroid.
Yes. What does that do? I know the thyroid does lots of stuff for us.
Yes.
It's like an operating system a little bit running in the background. What have been the things that you've had to deal with since having that removed?
I'm on a synthetic thyroid hormone called Synthroid, and you just kind of have to consistently figure out where your levels are, whether you're tired or you're overamped, whatever it is, you're kind of consistently changing around your meds, especially when you're pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
You're going in every month, your weight is changing, your hormones are changing. So just that's the hardest part of the journey. And otherwise, nothing else, which is why I kind of say, like, yes, it was a medical experience, but it didn't have that many legs, and I'm in a stable place. I've been in a stable place for 10 years.
Wow.
But it was more of a really interesting wake-up call.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then now let's go back to the meeting of your now husband.
Yeah.
How did you meet?
We met on Hinge.
Oh,
shout out.
We
met on Hinge. It was my first date.
That feel.
I know. I realized that. I dated there were plenty of other bad situations, but yes, he was my first Hinge date.
But that must have been early Hinge.
Very.
Early Hinge, and I feel like, and I've been out of obviously the dating game for a long time as well, but I feel like the early days of Hinge were probably a very different place.
100%.
In the sense of like the men that were showing up on Hinge and signing up for Hinge, I think were, quote, there for the right reasons.
Bachelor Talk?
Yeah.
In Bachelor Talk, there for the right reasons.
And
that's so funny.
So maybe that makes sense.
You know what? It was about the mutual friends. You had to be connected, and then you could see the mutual friends.
Yes.
So I could actually ask someone, hey, like,
do you know this guy? Is he a
killer? Or whatever. And the answer was, at least in my case, and oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. I was like, do you know this guy? And she's like, yeah, he's amazing. We dated. And I loved him, and he didn't love me. But you should go out with him. But I'm sure she probably didn't think we were going to get fucking married.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible.
So sorry.
Okay, so what was the first date?
He took me to, this is so Teddy, my husband, this is very him. He took me to an underground comedy show at a comic book store called The Meltdown.
Okay.
So epic. Incredible comedians. Absolutely incredible. And it was such a cool show. We barely talked, but I was like, this guy's cool. And he listened to Jamiroquai, and we were like, okay,
Oh.
we're
We're
I'll go on
vibing.
a second date with you. I also throughout my dating life, if I wasn't into someone first date, I'd be like, no. But then I actually was like really off of a first date, and then I ran into this guy on the airplane, and I was like, what was I thinking? This guy is like super cute, handsome, awesome. Like, why was I so
dismissive?
Yes, to not go on the second date. I probably would have liked, or whatever. So I was like, always go on the second date. And then by the third date, I was like, I'm marrying him.
Oh. And in terms of like how you guys grew up, similar experiences, different experiences?
Similar. We definitely grew up in a similar way, not perfectly aligned, but yeah, he has a very large family. I have a very large family, which is really great, especially at this point of marriage, because you married the family. You so very much married that family. And I think if I had a partner who didn't understand the dynamics of like having 17 first cousins or whatever it is that he has and I have, it would not work.
Yeah. Okay, so at what point, you're marrying him after date 3.
I do.
At what point do you guys, wait, actually, before I ask that question, you get diagnosed with thyroid cancer 3 weeks into dating.
Yes.
Teddy's response is,
I'm gonna hang with this girl and make her feel cool and like a normal person and not like a science experiment.
Yeah.
And he's sending me records to listen to. And I'm in Houston for my surgery and medical procedure because, of course.
Yeah.
And he's in LA and we FaceTimed and he made me feel not only like loved but like desirable during that period.
Yeah.
And which is just like, my husband's really amazing in general of making people feel whole. I feel like he just has that ability to see someone and just like fill them up, whoever they are.
And he's a writer? How strange.
And he's a writer.
I'm just kidding. My husband's a writer as well.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he was just amazing. And so I was like, well, okay, this is
This is another interesting thread that I'm hearing a lot in this podcast is people who experience something intense, traumatic, and serious in some way, and often their life partners show up around the same time.
Of course. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know what it is, but this is now, I don't know, we've done 20 or something of these recordings at this point, and this story, this sort of thing of like your person showing up in your orbit at the right time.
Or I also feel like you choose the person, right? Like,
yes.
I feel like they're there and they show you a side of them.
They show,
and you're like, this is what I want. This is what I hope for.
Yes.
And those extreme moments have extreme responses.
Yes.
And you're really going to see who someone is.
The best and worst of somebody.
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay, so then at what point are you guys talking about one day I want to have kids, one day I want a family to look like this? Do you have those sort of discussions when you're dating?
Definitely.
Date 4?
No. He was very serious about marriage. His parents are not together, and I think he said it very early that if he is going to get married, it is going to be for the long haul. Like, he had certain ideas around marriage, but like, I'm all in on date 3. He's definitely not all in on date 3. He's
right.
What is like, I'm going to be with this girl through this experience, but he's definitely not thinking, hey, I'm going to marry her in X, Y, Z years.
And so at this point, Doyen has not yet started. You're going back to entertainment.
That's
you
right.
Start Doyen later.
Yep.
How long into dating do you guys decide to get married?
2.5, 3 years?
3 years?
Yeah, 3 years.
Okay. So you get married around the time Doyen starts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting married kind of like at the height of Doyen, actually.
Okay. And then at some point, Doyen gets acquired, right?
Yes.
What was that experience like for you selling your baby?
Very bittersweet for a lot of reasons. I think any founder would feel that way. And I think externally everyone's saying, oh my God, congratulations, you got acquired. And it feels great to hear that. But if you don't see through your vision, no matter what, there feels like some form of failure. And I think that's just like a founder thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you have all these big dreams and visions for where you're going. But again, bittersweet. Sweet in so many ways. I'm so grateful. I got to have this incredible experience, grow this huge community, and then to get acquired, we were able to bring that community into a home, which was ultimately a social club on Melrose Place. Amazing. So that was amazing. And it was so cool to be able to actually build out the space, see it come to life, all of these things, even if it wasn't, quote, Doyen, it was Albright. Yeah. I'm still very, very proud that we got to that place.
At what point in this founder getting acquired, etc. journey do kids enter the picture?
I was 3 months pregnant with my oldest when my contract with Albright came up, we did not renew on all sides.
Yeah.
The founders of Albright were super difficult. And I was like, I should probably not be running around a club at this
Sure.
point. Like my, kind of needs had changed, but then it was COVID. So it was just kind of all aligned in a really interesting way, which was I'm 3 months pregnant. Have sold this thing that I've been working on for years and years, and I no longer have this like huge thing to pour into. And it's COVID and I'm at home. So like, whew, just like it went from riding a very high to entering COVID being like, what am I even doing next? Like in some ways I was grateful for the time and space to process the last couple of years and what had happened because it was intense.
Yeah.
But in other ways, I was just like, I actually have no clue what I'm going to do next. So I tried to focus and really enjoy being home and being pregnant and just thinking about what was next, like kind of like getting ready for parenthood. But it was impossible to get, freelance gigs at that point. I had been doing events and of course the world is shut down. It's just, a big moment of like, what is next? I really have no clue.
So I basically had the exact same experience where I finished a little bit different in the sense that I made it to 6 months postpartum. I did my maternity leave with the organization I worked for 10 years. And I was running their U.S. office, and it was the first time they had ever had one, a British company. And it was time for me to either say, guys, like, you need to pay me what Americans get paid for what I'm doing, or like I need to leave.
Yeah.
And I understand if you can't do that, but I also can't look myself in the mirror anymore and accept this level of pay. Like, it's just not going to work. I love everything you do here, but I have too much respect for myself and what I'm bringing. And so I left 6 months postpartum, had no idea what I was going to do next. And at the same time, my husband's career took off like a rocket ship. And overnight, all of a sudden, my identity was like, what? Who am I now? I was just this like complete powerhouse. And now what am I doing? And it's a really confusing place to be.
So confusing. And I will share that with you, which is my husband's a writer, but in COVID, he had a show that he co-created launch. And because it was COVID, he did everything at our house. But they produced and created an animated show throughout COVID. And I had just had a baby. And all of a sudden, my partner is busier than he's ever been.
Yep.
He's working till 2, 3 a.m.
Yep.
every single night. I am fully taking care of this child without support, without my family, without any, no one's around. It's COVID. And I just like did not recognize my life.
Yeah. And I can only recognize now what was most likely postpartum depression.
Amen.
But postpartum depression can come obviously from a lot of different places, and there's the chemical imbalance, the hormonal imbalance, but there's also like the existential imbalance of like the identity thing rocking your fucking socks off.
Yes.
And that for me now, when I look back, I'm like, oh, like I was really not happy, and I was really angry.
Yes.
But I just remember being like, there's something wrong with me. Like, why? Like, I'm not cut out for this, or like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I was obsessed with my kid, and I still am, obviously. But now when I had the opportunity to do it again with the second, I was like, oh, this feels so different. Like, emotionally, I am in such a different place that it
100%.
only took me the second time to realize what a shitty place I was in the first time.
And I have more appreciation for my second kid.
Yes.
I'm like, I know this is a moment in time. It was a season. Everyone says that, but you don't really, you
can't know until you know.
That's right. And everything feels so long. And even, now with my oldest, I know that every chapter is so short, and I try to enjoy it. But
cliches are cliches for a reason.
Absolutely.
And they're also annoying for a reason, in the sense that you don't know what they mean until you know what they mean.
Yes.
Like, there are some things that you can't just benefit from somebody else's experience. You have to walk it yourself to then be like, oh, I get it. Like, no amount of wisdom from my mom is gonna make me feel something if I haven't been there yet.
I feel like that's a really hard part of parenthood, actually, is that it's very hard to have that empathy if you haven't gone through it yourself.
Yes.
I look back on certain moments of me at work having young mothers on teams.
Yes. Oh my
and
God.
I actually
yes.
like, I'm like, I find myself like, oh my God, how was I not more caring or understanding and it's hard.
Totally. Or often, like, I remember I used to do a lot of international travel in my last job, like monthly, twice a month, sub-Saharan Africa, Asia. And I had moms on the teams where I was working with kids. And I'm like, how are you? I will never forget this woman, Lisa Sachs, if you are listening, and you might be from Columbia University. Lisa, the first time I met her was at a conference in Germany. She came from New York. Was pumping and putting it into a freezer bag in fucking Germany to bring that breast milk home to New York. What an absolute legend. And at the time I was just like, she seems crazy.
Right.
Because I just didn't get it. I didn't get that, like, she had a plan and that's what she was doing and she was trying to make it all happen. I don't know how she did.
Is this just an awesome segue to breastfeeding?
Yeah, kind of. It is. Because I want to get to Swehl. Yeah. So you are home, you are in this sort of like flux period where you're reflecting, you're figuring out what's next. How does breastfeeding have the impact on you that it does?
Because I was breastfeeding, like kind of end of story.
Yeah.
When you are breastfeeding, it is the top priority in your life. That it's just kind of how it is. You have to breastfeed that baby every 2.5 to 3 hours. Your whole schedule revolves around it. Everyone knows a parent's going to be tired in the early days. It's like, well, because I have to wake up to feed them. Like, breastfeeding really is kind of like the start source of the pain points of parenthood. It's the thing that your partner can't necessarily do. So it starts that kind of like inequality in the early stages. It's the first decision you get judged on. Are you doing formula? Are you doing this? Like, it's painful. Like, it really is like kind of like what I think like ground zero to gaining your confidence as a parent.
Yes.
Not just breastfeeding, just your feeding choice.
Yes.
Did I choose to formula feed? Absolutely. Like, yes. And then you have to defend that decision or whatever. There's just so many external judgments in parenting. And it really, to me, I feel like if we can give people a better feeding journey and more confidence there, that they will have a better parenting journey, like, period.
100%.
Yes. And I was breastfeeding. So obviously was just, doing it all the time. And in the middle of the night at 4 a.m., I'm there breastfeeding my 7-month-old and just had this idea of like, this is insane. Like, I'm Googling an issue with one hand. I'm holding her with another. I'm reading like a 2000s WordPress article. No offense to Kelly Mom, because shout out. I went to you so many times. To like a very dated interface. I had gotten products from all these different companies.
So many products.
My God, I had spent so much money.
Much money.
Literally, actually, like the inception of Swehl, I had gone on a road trip to meet my husband's family, like that, because it was COVID and we couldn't get it on a plane. So as I was unpacking like this car full, I put a ton of stuff on the table and realized it was all breastfeeding accessories. It took up an entire table and I'd spent like basically
I've seen that picture.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, oh my God, like this. And so that was kind of where Swehl started, which was there's a more holistic approach to this for a parent who's in this, a modern parent. I hate to say the word modern because it's overused, but like a modern parent, and it can't just be tools.
No.
It has to be emotional. It has to be educational. It has to be advocacy. It has to be all these things because those are all the tools that you need to actually breastfeed.
And for you personally, did you have access to lactation consultants when you were, because for me, lactation consultants were super hard to come by during COVID.
Yes.
And like you could have, like, I didn't want a virtual
video,
visit.
yeah.
I wanted like some old grandma to put her hands on my tits and show me what to do. And that wasn't available to me.
100%. And we will never change that. Like, you have having a person who can teach you. And Swehl, like, kind of like to get personal, I've already shared that I don't have a mother that I can go to for breastfeeding, and I don't have a sister.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that person. Thank God I had one of Teddy's cousins who I forced to come over and teach me how to change a diaper. But Swehl is also for like women who don't necessarily have that person who can just come and teach them, and they can't afford a lactation consultant, which is $300 in LA for a 90-minute session. Like, that's just not,
it's such an important resource because so many people who have those people in their lives, who have a mom,
You're right.
who have a, still don't necessarily feel comfortable going to them because there's a vulnerability of like,
100%.
I'm supposed to know how to do this. But there's a nice thing where when you're accessing resources like this, where you can be like a little bit anonymous at first and gain your confidence and then decide how vocal you want to be about whatever it is you're trying to figure out how to do. But I remember it being a really lonely place.
Yeah, so isolating. My God, so isolating. And you're up all night. You are alone.
Yeah.
You said earlier, just like well, I think breastfeeding is a learned skill. It's very it's something you have to practice and learn and research. It has its own jargon, it has its own language, all of the above. But it's like the motherhood intuition that you were talking about earlier. You don't just wake up and know how to breastfeed. You can really try, and your baby has instincts, but this is something that you learn over time and through gaining that knowledge, and just like everything with parenthood.
I think sometimes we extrapolate out like, okay, well, women have always known how to breastfeed.
Right. It's as old as time.
It's as old as time. But you know what's as old as time that we don't have anymore is a bunch of fucking people sitting around a fire face to face, helping multi-generational households, helping each other. We don't have that anymore.
You know what else is as old as time?
What?
Wet nurses. Like people like you all, like women have always had trouble breastfeeding, by the way, number one. Also, like I liken breastfeeding to running. Running is as old as time, but not everyone's running a marathon, okay? Or it's like not everyone has different, right? So like, and we need tools to run a marathon. You need community to run a marathon. You need practice and training and tools and like, you know, technology. You need all these things to run a marathon these days. It's the same with breastfeeding.
Absolutely. And, you know, what I appreciate about the Swehl community as somebody who I did a sprint, not a marathon.
Sure.
Is that it's like a pretty friendly place to it is a very friendly place to everybody. It's a feeding destination.
Yes.
It's if this is your journey, there are tools for you. If it is not your journey, you also are part of this community.
That's right.
That there's something for everybody is really important because there's some fucking crazy militant people when it comes to breastfeeding, and that is not Swehl, and it's important to say that.
We felt that the barrier to enter breastfeeding was so high based around the gatekeepers of really like lactation consultants.
Who are quite a community.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of characters.
And we have, well, I should like preface and say I have nothing but the utmost respect for them because they're doing such a hard job. There are so many kind of modern-minded LCs out there who are coming from a place of empathy and respect, and they want to help you kind of like build. It's not even like fed is best. It's just like, what do you want to do?
Right.
Like, what do you want your journey to be? Let's go for that.
Yeah.
I think Elizabeth and I also both combo fed. We both are formula feeding moms. It helped extend my breastfeeding journey. I used formula in tandem with breastfeeding for both children. So, like, that would be insane if I was coming out and saying, breast is best. Like, you should only breast. Like, you know, not even. We really felt that there was a new narrative that needed to be told around breastfeeding.
100%. I met both kinds of LCs in my journey, and there's some pretty wild ones out there.
Totally.
And also some amazing ones. So you started this with a college friend?
No, I started this with a woman I never met for 8 months, even after we started Swehl. I started it with my now very dear friend, someone I look up to more than I look up to anybody, Elizabeth Meyer.
Also NYU?
Also NYU, also LA. Lived next door to my brother, had taken my dog on walks, but I had never met her. We got put in touch in COVID through a mom group, through a friend, and she had such an interesting skill set. She was such a serious, interesting, smart, warm person. I knew I wanted to work with her, but I didn't realize at the time, like, how much I'd won the lottery meeting her. And then she was in Pennsylvania in COVID.
Wow.
And I was here, and we worked together and started Swehl for 8 months until we met each other in LA.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I had no idea. I just saw NYU. I assumed that you had always known each other.
No, but I can't imagine not knowing her at this point.
Wow. And now that Swehl is well on its way.
Sure.
There's the actual like physical things people can buy to sort of support their journey and just like look super fresh and fly in their Swehl merch. Can you tell me a little bit about Hot Mom Walk?
Sure.
Just because I think it sounds fun.
Okay, so I think just in general, kind of peeling back Swehl, we wanted to start the brand to be like, we see you, we know where you are, but it's kind of shifted into this more aspirational place of maybe like the mom I wanted to be postpartum that I knew I would get back, and I get to pour some of my, you know, energy into being like, it'll get better. Like you will be the hot mom. So I'm not expecting like people to actually come and feel like a hot mom. You're coming postpartum. We're here for you. We're going to help you find community. We're going to like meet you at your car and help you get your baby out and be the first outing that you have around all these other moms who just love you. And we're going to say like, you're a fucking hot mom and you get to feel amped up and be a part of this space. And it's just kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, silly, fun way to go around the country and meet these amazing women and get people out together. And when we were starting Swehl, even the name Swehl, obviously your belly swells, your breast swell, like all these things swell. Swell's like a really optimistic word. But we saw different tropes of mothers. We saw like this messy, alcoholic, like, is it
wine mom? Hashtag wine mom.
Exactly. Or this breastfeeding mother who was like in a cloak.
Wholesome.
No, like goddess-like over a creek and like breastfeeding without hands. And we were like, this is like, where are we? Like, we don't feel like we've lost our identity. There's this big idea of like identity loss in parenthood. I feel like I gained some. I swelled. I became kind of a more focused version of myself with time, right? Yeah. So everything that we do with Swehl pushes that identity and that idea that you're growing and you'll get there and you're on your way.
I love it. And for your kids, you have two girls.
I do.
Do they know what mommy does?
Oh, yeah.
And,
absolutely.
And how do you think they would describe it? What your job is?
Mommy helps other mommies feed their babies.
So cute.
But they also like steal our nipple balm and use it as lip gloss. They're obsessed. Like, so they like go through my tools all the time.
That's really cute. And for now, you are a mom of these two girls living in LA. Different existence to how you grew up.
Definitely.
And two working parents. They're watching you be a founder. What do you think is the sort of hardest part about juggling your own thing and parenting young kids? Because they're 4 and 2?
Yeah, they are. Okay, so when I was doing Doyen was like, it was so much. I was, of course, like getting married, and Teddy was a huge part. But beyond Teddy and Doyen, that was kind of like my life. Kids are so humbling. I do not feel like some hotshot founder all the time. It's like, even if I have the best day ever, like I have to go change diapers.
Yeah.
I feel like being a parent, most people are like, oh my God, I can't be a parent and be a founder. Like, yes, you can, because you're more focused. You are more willing to like carve out the time to do what you need to do and then stop. You have more balance. You have more focus. Like, I think being a parent founder is a superpower of mine. So while it's very, very difficult, there's no other option. I get my work done, and then at 4:00, literally, I'm probably going to get my kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's early. Like, I am a parent until they go to sleep, and then maybe I'll get back on, obviously. Like, the world's not perfect, but yeah, I find myself, like, I think having a partner like Elizabeth, where we both know that for us, parenting comes first.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. Like, parenting
don't
comes
have a
first.
choice.
Yeah. Well, some founders make that choice, and that's their choice. And
right.
Truly.
In my mind, I'm like, there's no choice.
Of course.
Right.
And plenty of other people make the choice that work does come first. For us, our kids come first. And, and that's what it is. And we give each other that space and never let the ball drop on anything with work. And we make it work.
And what support system do you and Teddy have when you're both super busy?
Yeah.
With the kids?
Well, one thing, we both have flexible schedules, so that's really amazing.
Critical.
And Teddy is all in on being a parent with me. We split things almost like exactly down the line, not perfectly, but he is a very active dad, and that's amazing and wonderful. And then, of course, we also have school. The kids go to school till 2:30, and we also have a nanny. We have a lot going on, and we couldn't do those things without every single piece of the puzzle. And I still find myself,
yes,
being on 100%. So we're very, very lucky in terms of support. And it's a journey.
It is a journey. I mean, you walked into my house today. Our housekeeper was here. Our au pair is here. Like, it takes a lot of people to make stuff happen. And that's one of the other things that I always try and impart on everybody is, like, when you hear somebody's success story, there are so many people lifting them up and helping that to happen.
Absolutely. Whether
or not they realize it. I think women are often really good at realizing what that support network is that's helping them and enabling them. Now, Teddy, you said you guys kind of split things 50-50. Did you know that he was going to be that kind of dad?
Yes. Yes.
How did you know?
When we were dating, I knew he had a vision for his future that looked very different than my childhood home. He had a mom who was an executive. She still worked to this day. She traveled a bunch for work. He was used to having both parents actively have their own jobs, roles, whatever. And I think he wanted to like replicate that. He really respects his mother and has like a lot of just like appreciation for her career and all that she's done for herself and for the family. So yeah, I knew that he wanted something that just like looked a little different. And his dad is not a typical dad. His dad is like our number one babysitter.
Oh my God. God bless.
Yeah, God bless Baldy. So like Baldy's at our house.
Baldy?
He takes our kids to school once or twice a week. Like,
amazing.
So that is also rare, especially for that generation.
Yes.
So I knew Teddy had that as a role model, and it's really amazing.
I saw something this week that kind of exploded my brain in its simplicity, but it basically said when you're like shopping for a life partner in the marketplace of partners in a heteronormative sort of situation.
Sure.
Does this guy want to have a wife and kids, or does he want to be a father and a husband?
Ooh.
Those are two really different things.
I really appreciate that.
I really appreciate that, and it just is so simple. But for, we don't have a lot of listeners who are looking for life partners. A lot of them, have sort of a path set ahead of them one way or another. But that is pretty profound, I think.
Someone shared with me, or at least when I was thinking about who my partner would be, I always thought, who do I want to have kids with? Like, right?
Yeah.
And now as I'm entering this new chapter of my life, the two kind of like requirements that I talk to my little cousins about or whatever, you need to want to have a family with them if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And they need to be able to help you through with the death of your parents. Because those are two major things that you're going to go through together. And it's again, that kind of like sandwich generation idea. But it's so important, of course, kids number one, but they also need to help you through those changes that are happening with your current family and help you kind of like integrate and figure all of that out. So that I would add that.
Your little cousins out there are like,
yeah, she's like, Jesus, Betsy.
Yeah, she's like, I'm just trying to like figure out if I should say
she's
yes
like,
to this
I'm on
guy for
Bumble,
right.
Okay? Just like, let me live. I just want to go on a date.
Right. Oh my God. So I'll wrap up with this question. There's two parter. There's a parenting one and a Swehl one. Okay. So for parenting, thinking about your girls and them growing up and thinking about the mom that they get to see, pursuing what she wants, and a dad who's pursuing what he wants. Do you have sort of like clear hopes and dreams for what they'll do, what kind of people they'll be, how they'll live their lives?
I mean, yeah, of course, but I will try not to go there. I will try to let them create their own path. I just want them to try a lot of things. I feel like, being able to experiment and try is the greatest joy. It'll lead you to where you're going. So that would be my hope.
And for Swehl, I think people are going to be interested in how they can engage and get involved. So coming on, from listening to this conversation, what should people be doing to get involved in the Swehl community?
Well, first you have to know that you don't even have to be a mother to be a part of Swehl. We have women who are not moms join our Hot Mom Walk all the time. So it's everyone from, I don't even want to have kids to I'm thinking about kids to women who have kids who are in their 20s and 30s who still want to join us. So like you're a Swehl mom or in a Swehl person, community member, no matter what. But if you want to get involved, obviously follow us on Instagram at Swehl, SWEHL. Come to a Hot Mom Walk. And then also we do a lot of work in making sure that our tools and resources are open access. Our community and our videos are always open access. Our actual physical tools, we work with hospitals to donate them to underserved patients. So if you ever want to get involved in that way, reach out.
Oh, amazing. This has been, honestly, some of my favorite conversations are the ones where I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen today. And this was one of those. So I'm so happy that we got to do this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in the closet.
I really appreciate it. I can't wait for my zucchini bread.
Yes. It's very chocolatey.
I can't wait.
All right, guys. See you next week.
Thank you.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at Mutha, MUTHA.life for a daily look at all things Mutha. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mutha Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.